people of the world. Welcome to today's episode of Coffee Chats with Jax. Today I want to talk to you guys about something that is very, very important to me. It's a subject that I have not talked about on here in a while, but if you know me at all, you'll know that something I feel really passionate about is talking and exposing the truths behind rape culture and sexual assault. If you've read my books or watched my videos or heard me speak, you'll know that this is a very personal issue to me. And I was reminded recently about a conversation that I had regarding an assault that I experienced that made me really upset. To be really honest, it was a therapist that I had, and I was really damaged from it. This isn't the therapist that I have right now. The therapist I have right now is a superstar, all-star, champion of a therapist. She's the best one I've ever had, and she's incredible. But I had one years back that I was trying to process through an assault that I had experienced with. And the response she gave to me was really scary because it kind of fed into everything lie-wise that I had been believing. You see, I found out recently how common this is, but I didn't realize it was common before because it was something that I just kept in my own head. But my biggest fear with any of the assaults that I've experienced was that it was my fault, was that I did something wrong, or that I'm being dramatic, or I made it up. But the fear, the underlying thing was that I thought it was a me problem, and that brought all this shame on me and kind of made me relive the assault in my head over and over again, just trying to remember exactly what happened so I could prove to myself that it wasn't my fault, but really just re-traumatizing myself in the process of it. It was really horrible. And so when I finally voiced out that fear in a therapy session, there were two different experiences that I had that were not good. The first one was when my therapist asked me to explain in super depth detail every little thing that happened, like step by step by step, and she asked me to close my eyes and give her all this information. I shared and exposed my story in greater detail and more personal ways than I ever had, and it left me feeling kind of like I was back in it, re-traumatized, and then I walked out of the therapist's office with just like that. That was actually an experience that made me jump in my car and want to drive to every animal shelter I could find to adopt a dog, which is a story for another time. In my opinion, and in my new understanding of how therapy should go and of how mental health is and just how our brains work, that was not good. Because if you are asking somebody to go into so much detail about something without keeping them present in the moment, if you just want to know all the nitty-gritty stuff about somebody's trauma, you're actually re-traumatizing that person if you are not able to ground them in the now. Because when we're discussing and processing trauma, because I do think that that's important, we have to make sure we're keeping one foot present and one foot there, not both feet there, because if that's true, your brain is experiencing the situation as if you were back in it again. And that's why you feel the different physical sensations, like in your chest. Maybe your chest gets tight, or maybe your heart starts racing, or your stomach hurts, you get sweaty. Or for me, things started spinning, and it's like your body responds the same way. Because when you go there, you get outside of your window of tolerance, which means you get outside of the present. And so just a pro tip on that for anyone who's considering going to therapy or trying to work through traumas, keep that in mind. I know that everybody's different and all therapists are different, but that's an experience I had and things that I've learned that I feel passionate about to share. And so I went back a week later to talk about another assault that I had experienced, one that I wasn't even questioning whether or not it was an assault. I remember being very, very clear when it happened. And I'm processing this with her just to talk about it. And the response I was given was that sometimes guys just like to try it on. Sometimes when you're drinking and you're a girl, you need to be really careful because it's like a biology thing. Like, you can't help it. They just want to try it on, especially if you're making out with a guy and you don't want it to go further, then you should know that biology, sometimes they're just going to want to try it on. And she kept telling me this thing over and over and over again. And I don't shut down very often, but I 100% shut down. I could not speak. I felt like I couldn't really breathe. I felt like the room was spinning. I left that therapy session and I wanted to drive my car off of the highway. It was horrible. It was horrible. And so I left there and I went to my friend's house for one of my friend's birthday parties, and I was a mess. And so they took me outside to talk. We sat down and I told them what happened. And I was afraid that my therapist was right. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe I should have been more careful because biology, the guy can't help it. Maybe they do want to try it on, whatever the hell that means. My friends were livid, pick up a table and throw it on the ground livid. They were so angry. And it really like woke me up in that moment about what sexual assault actually is and how important it is for us to actually know that as both men and women, to know what the lines are and the boundaries are, because that's something we need to talk about. Because if assault victims and survivors get stuck in our head thinking that like this was my fault, or get stuck thinking that if I don't come forward, or stuck thinking that if I come forward, people aren't going to believe me or I'm going to get responded to like that. Like, it's responses like that that just make rape culture what it is today. No means no. Like, it's just, it is what it is. There's no gray, blurry line around that. Like, when someone says they don't want to be touched, when someone says they don't want to have sex with you, they don't want to kiss you, they want you to not touch them, they just don't want you in their space, and then you do it anyway, that is assault. It just is. There's so much that goes into that. Rape happens, and the only person at fault when rape happens is the rapist. Put the responsibility on the abuser and take it off of the victim. Sexual assault causes a lot of long-term, short-term, psychological, emotional damage. And that's stuff that I'm still trying to work through and figure out, as I know so many people out there are. But so much more of that than I realized came from the responses that I got. Because the responses that you get, they could potentially be a whole other trauma for you in your life. And that's not okay. Yeah, I wanted to make this video to let you know that therapy is so important. I think everybody should go to therapy in some kind of way, but make sure you find a good therapist, because the one I have right now is changing my life in the most incredible ways. But there have also been multiple experiences with therapy that has impacted me pretty negatively. Everyone has their different ways and beliefs and all the things, but find one that works for you and know that guys don't get to just try it on, especially when the person they want to try it on with says no. That is assault. And that is what I want to say. So if you out there have experienced some kind of sexual assault, violence against you, any of those things, you are not alone. It is not your fault. And I understand that it's hard to talk about, and I understand that it feels, there's just not words for it. It is the farthest thing away from easy. But what I want to say to you is that you're not alone, and it gets better. It gets better. Do not lose hope and do not give up. And know that I'm fighting this battle with you, and we are going to change rape culture. I'm determined to do it, and it starts right here with these conversations. It starts with talking about it. So that is what I have to say to you guys. If you liked this video, if you want to hear more about my story and my life and why I do this, then check out my book, Finding Home. I talk much more in detail about all of these topics that I talk about in my videos. If you are interested in buying my book, Finding Home, supporting me, a link in the description box below to do so. I love you guys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.